Hi there! Welcome to Hermetic Journeys. You're watching the companion video to emblem number 3. So this is for those of you who like to delve into the depths of the alchemical process, right? Or like to delve into the depths of the alchemical philosophy. Okay, so that's why I'm doing these videos. Let's get right to it. Michael Meyer mentions in his discourse on emblem number 3, for the clothes of King Deunech, by the way, featured in emblem number 28, which are dirty with sweat, have to be washed by fire, says the Rosarium Philosophorum. And they have to be burnt by water. Okay, so what does all that mean? Well, obviously, he's talking about the purification process. And I would specifically mention the white phase, which we talked about in our big video on the metals, or work with metals in alchemy. So we're purifying this king. Now in emblem 28, the king is shown in a sweat bath, and I've used that emblem as part of that video on alchemy to demonstrate the king in various stages of suffering in order to break down the king. In other words, when we spoke about this, the red king typically represents sulfur, and the king in general represents gold. So we're breaking down the gold or the sulfur, all right, to its constituent components to create the amalgam and all that stuff. So I thought, well, let me take a look at the Rosarium Philosophorum and see what it says about this, where this is mentioned. And I found a really cool internet archive, which you can see now on your screen. And the amazing thing is that it's searchable. And I thought to myself, wow, that's awesome. I can search this document for this particular writing about King Deunech. So I did a search for King Deunech and turned up with a big fat goose egg. All right. And so that was weird. So I did a search for the word Deunech.
The first reference stated, "First there is had in our green lion the true matter, and of what color it is, and is called Aedrop, Azoth, or Deunech." The second reference is from St. Thomas of Aquinas, and at the bottom states, "No kind of stones can be prepared without Deunech, the green and liquid, because it is of a force and engendered in our minerals."
If you look carefully, they're not referencing a historical figure or a mythological figure. They're referencing a solution, okay? And in fact, one of the references mentions the word green. And I thought, well, that's weird. So what goes on here? So I kind of put it in the back of my mind, and over the course of the last few days, I happened to pick up this book. I purchased this book years and years ago. In fact, it's the first book that I bought on alchemy, and it's called Alchemy and Mysticism. And it's a wonderful book by Alexander Rube, who was an art historian who was intrigued by these alchemical images, like we all are, right? We're all intrigued by this stuff. And he compiled them based on their subject matter. So, for instance, this particular section on purification deals with, our old pal, King Deunech, and there he is sitting in his sweat box. And underneath it says, in parentheses, code name for the green vitriol of the philosophers. And I said, what? So that led me to look into the vitriols. Now, vitriols are mineral salts that are used to break down metals in the alchemical process. And I thought, well, I'm going to look into this, okay? And so I came across something called the Hand of the Philosophers. Now, I'd seen this image before, and of course, I'm sure you've seen it. It's highly symbolic, and it has to do with mineral salts. And so I thought, now we're getting somewhere. So I discovered that the image was created by a man named Isaac Hollandus. I believe he's a 15th century alchemist. Of course, we don't know if that's his real name, because like George Starkey, a.k.a. Irenaeus Philalethes, all right, he used a pseudonym. Isaac Hollandus did a great volume of work concerning alchemy. So I thought, well, let me take a look at this Hand of the Philosophers and see what this is all about. So I found a reference to it, of course, on Adam McLean's wonderful alchemy website, a translation of the original text. And Hollandus is telling us about this image. Now, if you look at the image, it is a human hand, of course, and above each finger is a particular symbol that represents a mineral salt. So if we go from the thumb over to the pinky finger, they are listed in terms of their potency. So the thumb is the first one, so it is the most potent mineral salt. Now, Hollander speaks in general about this image when he says, "Those who have not this hand and do not understand its secret signs, they do not possess the philosopher's treasure." Now remember, the word philosopher was typically used to describe alchemists. In this hand is locked the secret of the philosophers, that is, the seed of, and the earth, as will be told later. So let's start with the thumb. Here he says, "First look at the thumb on which a crown stands below the quarter moon. By this is meant saltpeter, for just as the thumb vigorously finishes off the hand, saltpeter does in the alchemical art, for he is the king and the lord of all salts. He is the mill through which everything must be ground." So saltpeter is the most potent mineral salt used in the alchemical process to break down things. And what I learned was that these were combined in various ways to create different solutions. As an example, aquafortis, which is a solution used to break down metals, specifically silver, it doesn't break down gold, all right, is a powerful oxidizing agent made up of distilled green vitriol, saltpeter, and alum. We'll get to alum as well. Yeah, okay, so there we have the combination of various salts to create a particular solution that can break down our metals. Okay, that makes sense? When I did some research on saltpeter, essentially it is potassium nitrate, as I said, which is a very powerful oxidizer and is used today in gunpowder. So, in fact, it's the main ingredient in gunpowder. In some of these alchemical manuscripts I've been reading, it's interesting because it'll have little warnings about explosions. So, and of course, there's that famous painting that I use all the time of an explosion in an alchemical lab. And it does happen because we're working with some volatile chemicals. Right? So don't try this at home unless you know what the hell you're doing. Let's take a look now at the index finger. The second sign and secret of the philosophers is the star with 6 points, standing above the forefinger next to the thumb. It is compared to Roman vitriol because no work that is to be perfect can be completed without vitriol. So vitriol is a big, big word because it's not just describing some mineral salts. It's an acronym for something, which we'll get to in a moment. But essentially, vitriols are sulfate salts of 4 metals, copper, iron, aluminum, and zinc. Here, my notebook. Are you impressed with my notebook? Okay. These, like sea salt, are naturally occurring minerals. When these are heated, water is given off, followed by an oily, sharp liquid, which is known as oil of vitriol, okay, which is diluted sulfuric acid. And vitriols are used in various ways, just like the salts are used in various ways. Now, speaking specifically to the term vitriol, or the word vitriol, it is an acronym for a Latin description. And I'm showing you this beautiful illustration from Basilius Valentinus's work, also known as Basil Valentine. Right, and I'm going to read to you the Latin translation here. We start with the V. It is visita interiora terre rectificando in venes occultum lapidem. I've been studying Latin. It's so hard, but it's so cool. Okay, and that translated, more importantly, means by visiting the center of the earth, you will find the philosopher's stone. Wow. So that's pretty cool, isn't it? So the word vitriol, it stands for a collection of sulfate salts of copper, aluminum, zinc, and iron, but it also is an acronym. Wow, the layers here, right? The onion, we're peeling back the layers of the onion. We're finding all this really cool stuff. At least I hope you are. Hope you're with me here. So in terms of King Deunech, my suspicion is he may represent something called green vitriol, which I believe is used to, of course, break down metals, but specifically as an ingredient in solutions that will break down gold. And there's a very famous image, I'm sure you've seen if you've been looking at alchemical images at all, of a green lion devouring the sun. And I believe that represents green vitriol. Let's take a look at the middle finger. The third sign is the sun standing above the middle finger. By it, sal ammoniac is designated. For apart from saltpeter and vitriol, nothing is more powerful than sal ammoniac. Sal ammoniac is not a guy who lives down the street. I'm going to read from Robert Allen Bartlett's most excellent book, Real Alchemy. I suggest you run out and get it, or get it from Amazon or whatever you do. Okay? He's talking about sal ammoniac. There is some evidence to suggest that the priests at the Temple of Amun in ancient Egypt produced it by sublimating soot. The product contained volatile ammonia salts and was called the salt of Amun, then later sal ammoniac. Making sense so far? I sure hope so. Let's talk about the ring finger. The fourth sign of the philosophers is the lantern standing above the fourth finger of the hand, whereby alum is indicated. For without alum, no perfect work can be accomplished, because it is required for the red and the white. It has an astonishing nature and a most subtle spirit. Now, alum is what scientists call a double sulfate. It is the sulfate of potassium and aluminum. Okay, and it is used in operations because it works well with a lot of different things. Now, he mentions here it is used in the red and the white. I assume he's referring to the white phase and the red phase of the alchemical processes in purification and creation of the philosopher's stone. Now let's take a look at the little finger. The fifth secret and sign is the key of the philosophers. Standing above the little finger, simultaneously it is the lock of the hand. That is why the key is standing on it. By it, common salt is designated, for the salt is the key in this art. Essentially, he's telling you the key to unlocking the metals is using salts, mineral salts. That's what he's saying here. Common table salt even is mentioned, NaCl, okay? All right, now we're looking at the palm of the hand, or the middle of the hand. There's some very interesting symbology here that I think you'll find very, well, interesting. The sixth secret sign is the fish. It stands in the middle of the hand and signifies Mercury. For without Mercury or the fish, nothing can be done. He is the beginning, the middle, and the end, and he is the priest who must marry everything. He is the male and the seed. He is the water out of which all metals have originated, and he is the principal factor of all arts and the greatest of all secrets. So he is referring to Mercury and possibly Christ, of course, okay? And he's saying, Mercury is used in many different ways, and it's integral in the alchemical processes, as we found out in the previous videos. Now let's look at the palm. The seventh sign of the philosophers is fire. So by fire, he's talking about that ring of fire around the fish, okay? By this, sulfur is indicated. Well, of course, because sulfur is volatile, right? It is the earth and beginnings of all metals. It is the female who brings forth the fruit. For no seed can grow unless it be first thrown into fertile soil. Then beautiful fruit will come from it. Thus, it also happens that when a pure mercury is joined to a pure sulfur, this brings forth pure fruit. Now remember, our good pal, Jabir, the amazing Arabic alchemist, okay? I can't believe I remembered that. So remember, he was talking about his theories concerning the creation of metals within the womb of Mother Earth. And he spoke about massive underground subterranean trees from which metals grew, just like a fruit tree. Depending on the amount and the quality of the sulfur that is joined with the mercury to create metals will determine the quality of the metal. Remember, if we had sulfur that was impure in funky earth, not funky like James Brown, although that would be really cool. Oh, sorry. Anyway, right, that would determine the quality of metal. So if we had foul sulfur in foul earth, we would get lead because it's impure. If we had pure sulfur and pure mercury, we would have gold because it's pure. Remember all that? That's what he's talking about here. And finally, he says, thus they are man and woman, father and mother, fire and water, seed and earth. So that takes us to the end of this companion video to emblem number 3, where we reference specifically the hand of the philosophers, the mineral salts that are used in the alchemical process. And we now know that King Deunech is not a historical or a mythological figure, but he is instead green vitriol. So I think that's probably quite enough for everybody, right? It took me a little while to figure this out. I hope I'm right about it. As you know, I'm a student, just like you are, maybe. Maybe you're a student watching this. And learning about this stuff and having a great time doing it. I hope that this has made sense to you. I hope this gives you a greater understanding of not only the alchemical process, even if it's from 50,000 feet, okay, but also understanding the specific references in Atalanta Fugiens. And we will probably come across the mineral salts in Atalanta Fugiens at some point. I'm sure Michael Meyer is going to bring them up, or certainly King Deunech. Again, we will look at him at Emblem 28. And when we get there, we'll have a much better understanding. So thank you to those of you who took the plunge here and dove into the depths of the alchemical world with me, okay, to try and help us understand this complex, beautifully complex work, Atalanta Fugiens. Thank you very much and have a great day. See you next time.